A group of teenagers thought it was funny to humiliate an elderly black man working at a car wash, mocking his clothes, his job, and his dignity. What they didn't realize was that he wasn't just any old man. The very next day, he returned, not to argue, but to teach them the lesson of a lifetime, arriving in a car that left them speechless. Subscribe to Stories Unfolded for more tales of karma, justice, and the power of humility. You won't want to miss the twist in this one. The summer heat was unrelenting that afternoon, and the local car wash on Main Street was buzzing with activity. Cars lined up in a queue, their windshields glinting under the glaring sun as workers hurried to scrub, rinse, and shine. It was a place where people from all walks of life stopped to freshen up their vehicles, from delivery drivers with mud-splattered vans to local business owners in sleek sedans. Amid the rush, one of the car wash employees stood out, not for his appearance, but for his calm, deliberate manner. Earl Johnson, a 68-year-old man with salt and pepper hair and a wiry frame, was meticulously scrubbing the tires of a beat-up old truck. Earl wasn't the type to draw attention to himself. Dressed in faded overalls and a wide-brimmed hat to shield himself from the sun, he moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done this job for years. Earl had lived a life full of stories. He was a retired mechanic who had once owned his own shop, but circumstances had forced him to give it up years ago. Now, he worked at the car wash to make ends meet, always taking pride in doing his job well, no matter what it was. But not everyone appreciated Earl's work ethic or the wisdom behind his humble demeanor. Across the lot, a group of teenagers had gathered by their shiny pickup truck, laughing loudly and tossing an empty soda can between them. Chase, the ringleader of the group, was a brash 18-year-old with a cocky smirk and a loud voice that demanded attention. His two friends, Tyler and Logan, followed his lead, laughing at his jokes and chiming in with their own snide remarks. Their voices carried over the sound of hoses and sponges as they pointed at Earl, who continued working, unaware he was becoming the target of their mockery. "Hey, check out the old guy over there," Chase said, jerking his chin toward Earl. "What's he doing, polishing that truck with his retirement check?" Tyler snorted. "Nah, man. Probably can't even afford a retirement check. Bet he's been scrubbing tires since the Stone Age." Logan, always eager to impress the others, added, "Do you think he even owns a car? Or does he just ride his bike to work?" The group burst into laughter, their voices loud enough to catch the attention of a few other customers in line. Earl, hearing the commotion, glanced up briefly, his expression neutral. He wasn't the type to lash out or let insults get under his skin. Instead, he returned to his work, focusing on the task at hand. But his silence only encouraged the teens. "Yo, Grandpa," Chase called out, stepping closer. "How much do they pay you to scrub tires? Is it enough to buy a burger, or do they just let you take leftover fries home?" Earl straightened slowly, turning to face the boys. His face was calm, his weathered hands resting on the edge of the truck's hood. "Good afternoon, fellas," he said, his voice steady. "Y'all need something?" The politeness in his tone caught the boys off guard for a moment, but Chase quickly recovered. "Yeah," he said with a smirk. "We need to know why you're still working here when you should be sitting in a rocking chair somewhere." Tyler and Logan erupted into laughter again, slapping Chase on the back. Earl didn't respond immediately. Instead, he wiped his hands on a rag, his movements slow and deliberate. "Well," he said finally, meeting Chase's gaze, "work's an honest way to spend your time. Keeps you humble." Chase scoffed. "Humble, huh? You mean broke." A few of the car wash employees nearby shifted uncomfortably, but no one intervened. Earl, for his part, simply shook his head and returned to his work. He'd encountered people like Chase before, young, arrogant, and convinced the world revolved around them. As Earl moved to grab another sponge, Logan tossed his empty soda can in Earl's direction, letting it roll to a stop near his feet. "Oops," Logan said mockingly. "Mind picking that up for me, sir?" The boys laughed louder, but Earl didn't flinch. Instead, he picked up the can, walked over to a nearby trash bin, and tossed it inside. "There you go," he said calmly, turning back to the truck he was washing. "Man, he's too scared to even say something back," Chase said, his voice dripping with disdain. "What a loser." Earl didn't reply. He didn't need to. He had learned long ago that dignity wasn't something others could take away from you. It was something you carried within yourself. But as he finished the truck and moved on to the next vehicle, an idea began to form in his mind. The following afternoon, the car wash was just as busy as the day before, the summer sun beating down on the pavement. Chase, Tyler, and Logan were back again, lounging by their truck and cracking jokes at everyone's expense. But this time, their laughter came to an abrupt halt when they heard the deep, unmistakable purr of an engine pulling into the lot. All heads turned as a sleek, jet-black Rolls-Royce glided into view, its glossy exterior gleaming under the sunlight. The car was a masterpiece. Every curve and detail exuded luxury, and its presence demanded attention. Chase's jaw dropped. "What the heck?" he muttered, elbowing Tyler. "Who's driving that thing?" The car rolled to a stop near the entrance, and the driver's door opened. Out stepped Earl, dressed sharply in a tailored suit that fit him perfectly. His wide-brimmed hat was gone, replaced by a pair of polished sunglasses that gleamed as much as the car. For a moment, the lot was silent, everyone frozen in place as Earl calmly closed the door and walked toward the stunned teenagers. The boys stood in stunned silence as Earl approached them, his polished shoes clicking softly against the pavement. Gone was the man in faded overalls and a wide-brimmed hat. The Earl standing before them now radiated confidence and class. He was unrecognizable to Chase, Tyler, and Logan, who exchanged nervous glances as he stopped a few feet away. "Afternoon, boys," Earl said casually, sliding his sunglasses off and tucking them into the pocket of his suit. His voice was calm, but there was a sharpness beneath it, a quiet authority that made the teenagers squirm. Chase was the first to recover, though his bravado faltered. "Wait, you're the guy from yesterday," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That's right," Earl replied, his tone steady. "And I couldn't help but notice how much fun y'all seemed to have at my expense. Thought I'd stop by today and see if you still had something to say." Tyler and Logan shifted uncomfortably, looking anywhere but at Earl. Chase, determined not to lose face, crossed his arms and forced a smirk. "So what? You show up in a fancy car to prove a point? Big deal. It doesn't change anything." Earl smiled faintly, his calm demeanor unwavering. "You're right," he said. "A car doesn't change anything. It's just a thing, something you can lose as easily as you get it. But what it represents, that's where the lesson lies." Earl took a step closer, and the boys instinctively leaned back. "You see," he began, "this car isn't just some flashy toy. It's a reminder of where I came from and how far I've come. When I was your age, I worked hard, harder than most, because I had dreams, big dreams." He gestured to the Rolls-Royce behind him. This is the result of decades of sweat, sacrifice, and perseverance. I built my own business, ran it successfully for years, and took care of my family. But life doesn't always go the way you plan. Things happen, unexpected things, and sometimes you have to start over. Earl's gaze sharpened, his voice carrying a weight that made even Chase falter. That's why I'm working at the car wash now. Not because I failed, but because I'm not too proud to do what needs to be done. Work, no matter what kind, is honorable. And I'll tell you something else. It teaches you humility. Something I reckon y'all could use a little more of. Chase's cocky smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of uncertainty. Tyler and Logan stared at the ground, their earlier bravado now completely gone. Earl took another step forward, his voice softening, but no less firm. You think you're better than me because I was scrubbing tires yesterday? Let me tell you something. There's no shame in honest work. But there is shame in treating people like they're less than you. Because respect? That's something money can't buy, and it says a lot more about you than any car or fancy suit ever will. The boys didn't respond. They couldn't. The weight of Earl's words hung in the air, pressing down on them like a heavy fog. You judged me without knowing a thing about me, Earl continued. You thought I was just some old man who didn't matter. But every person you meet has a story, and you'd be wise to remember that. Because one day, you might find yourself in a position where you're the one being judged. Earl reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp $20 bill. He held it up, letting the sunlight catch its edges. Here, he said, handing it to Chase. Chase blinked, confused. What's this for? He asked hesitantly. Earl smiled faintly. For yesterday's soda can. Consider it a tip for picking up after you. The gesture left the boys even more flustered. Chase hesitated, then slowly reached out and took the bill, his face flushed with embarrassment. Earl turned to leave, but not before delivering one final piece of wisdom. You boys think about what I said, he said, glancing back over his shoulder. And next time you see someone working hard, whether it's scrubbing tires or flipping burgers, maybe give them a little respect. You'd be surprised what you can learn from people who don't fit your idea of success. Earl walked back to his car with the same quiet confidence he'd arrived with. As he slid into the driver's seat and started the engine, the powerful growl of the Rolls-Royce reverberated through the lot. He gave the boys a small wave before pulling out onto the street and disappearing into the afternoon traffic. The car wash fell silent for a moment, the lingering impact of Earl's words settling over the lot. Chase, Tyler, and Logan exchanged uneasy glances, the reality of their actions finally sinking in. Man, Logan muttered, breaking the silence. We really screwed up. Chase didn't reply. For the first time, he was at a loss for words. Earl's story is a reminder that humility and respect are far more valuable than arrogance and assumptions. He showed those boys that success isn't always flashy. It's about integrity, hard work, and treating people with kindness, no matter their role in life. How often do we judge others without knowing their story? Let Earl's experience challenge us to look beyond appearances and remember that every person we meet has value and a lesson to teach. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories Unfolded. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And remember, respect and kindness will always outshine judgment and cruelty.